On Christmas Day 1989, a cold wind blew through the military barracks at Targovist, Romania. Inside a concrete courtyard, the country's dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, and his wife Elena were forced to stand before a hastily arranged firing squad. Just days earlier, they had ruled a nation of 23 million people with absolute authority. Now they were being executed in front of a camera crew, shouting defiantly until the very end. The downfall of the Ceausescus was both sudden and shocking. Their execution was fast, brutal, and chaotic, reflecting the fury of a people rising up against one of Eastern Europe's most repressive regimes. But behind the images of their deaths lies a deeper and more complex story of a regime built on personality cults, paranoia, and utter control until the very moment it collapsed. This is a story of the execution of the Ceausescus that did go slightly wrong. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Nicolae Ceausescu came to power in 1965, replacing the previous Romanian communist leader. At first, Ceausescu was seen as a reformer. In 1968, he famously condemned the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia, a bold move that won him admiration both at home and in the West. Western leaders, eager to see a crack in the Iron Curtain, showered him with praise and economic support. But beneath the surface, Ceausescu was laying the foundations for an Orwellian state. As his rule deepened, so did his obsession with control. He developed a personality cult that rivaled Stalin's. His portrait hung in every school, office, and home. Propaganda praised his genius in song and verse, calling him the genius of the Carpathians. His wife Elena became the self-proclaimed mother of the nation, and was elevated to high-ranking scientific and political positions, despite having little formal education. By the late 1970s, the Ceausescus ruled Romania as a family monarchy in all but name. Ceausescu's rule was characterised by extreme repression and increasing misery for the Romanian people. The Securitate, Romania's feared secret police, maintained one of the largest surveillance networks in the Eastern Bloc. It's estimated that 1 in 3 Romanians acted as an informant. People lived in constant fear of arrest, interrogation, and torture, even for jokes made about the regime. Meanwhile, Ceausescu embarked on a disastrous economic plan. Obsessed with paying off Romania's foreign debt, he ordered massive exports of food, oil, and other goods, leaving his own people hungry and freezing. Food was rationed, electricity was cut for hours each day, and hot water became a luxury. Television broadcast only for a few days hourly, mostly showing speeches and propaganda. Children were forced to chant his name in schools. Couples were pushed to have at least 5 children in order to grow the workforce. Terminations and contraception were banned, and pregnant women were regularly examined by state doctors to ensure they hadn't terminated a pregnancy. By the 1980s, Romania had become a grim and surreal place. Bleak tower blocks, darkened streets, and propaganda on every single wall. In December 1989, the fragile facade finally cracked. The spark came from the city of Timișoara, in western Romania. When authorities tried to evict a popular Hungarian reformed pastor named Laszlo Tokes, protests erupted. These grew rapidly into a full-scale uprising. Initially, Ceausescu ordered a brutal crackdown. Security forces opened fire on protesters, killing dozens, but instead of restoring order, the violence only spread the flames of revolution. By December the 21st, Ceausescu arranged a massive pro-government rally in Bucharest, trying to prove he still had support. It backfired. As he stood on the balcony of the Communist Party headquarters, speaking to a crowd of tens of thousands, people began booing and shouting. His face twisted in disbelief. It was the first time in decades that he had faced public defiance. The live television broadcast abruptly was cut off. By the next day, Bucharest was in open revolt. Army units began siding with the protesters. Chaos engulfed the capital. The Ceausescus fled by helicopter from the roof of the Central Committee building, attempting to escape justice, but they wouldn't get far. Just hours after fleeing Bucharest, the Ceausescus were captured by the army near to the town of Targovist. A helicopter pilot had tricked them into landing by pretending the airspace wasn't safe. From there, soldiers arrested the pair and transported them to a local army garrison. For several days, they were held in a room under very heavy guard. Officers struggled with what to do. The country was leaderless, violence was spreading, and the newly formed National Salvation Front, a group of former communists and military leaders, feared that loyalists might try to free them. So they decided the Ceausescus must be eliminated once and for all. On December the 25th, 1989, Christmas Day, the Ceausescus were taken to a small room inside the military base. A makeshift tribunal, a special military court, had been assembled. The trial lasted less than an hour. Nicolae and Elena were accused of many crimes, including genocide, claiming 60,000 deaths, though this number was exaggerated, undermining the national economy, destruction of public property, and attempting to flee the country with state funds. There was no lawyer of their choosing, no appeal process, no presentation of evidence. When they were told the sentence of death by firing squad, Ceausescu shouted, "I do not recognise this court." Elena screamed, "Shame, shame. I raised you like a mother," to the guards. The soldiers dragged them outside almost immediately. They were led onto a snow-covered courtyard behind the barracks. The firing squad, 8 paratroopers, stood ready. The camera was rolling, recording the entire event for the new government to prove that the Ceausescus were gone once and for all. Elena refused to kneel. Nicolae sang parts of the Internationale, the communist anthem, in defiance. They were tied loosely, with string. Elena shouted to be shot together with her husband. At 2:50 p.m, the order was given. The soldiers opened fire with presumably their AK-47s. Reportedly, over 120 bullets were fired in a matter of seconds. The execution was so quick and violent that the cameraman missed the actual shooting, capturing only the lifeless bodies afterwards, slumped on the floor, riddled with bullets. One soldier later recounted, "I just fired. I couldn't hear the commands. It was chaos, but I wanted to be sure." The execution video was broadcast on Romanian television on the evening of Christmas Day. Many Romanians wept with joy, not over the deaths, but at a sense of liberation. The Ceausescu era was truly over, but not everyone celebrated. International observers were alarmed by the speed and brutality of the process. The so-called trial was little more than a show. There was no defence, no fair hearing. The new regime had done away with the dictator, but also with justice. Within Romania, some began to feel unease. Had the execution been necessary? Was it a real trial, or just political theatre? And what were the new leaders trying to hide? Though many Romanians had longed for Ceausescu's removal, the execution itself went wrong in several ways. Firstly, it was rushed. The trial and execution took place in under 2 hours total. There was no real investigation or accountability. Secondly, the video footage was botched. The government had wanted to record the entire process to show legitimacy, but the cameraman missed the moment of execution due to panic and disorder. Also, the death toll claims in the trial were exaggerated. The charge of genocide mentioned 60,000 deaths, but later evidence showed the number killed during the revolution was closer to over 1,100. While still tragic, it raised questions about the trial's validity. There was also no due process. Even brutal dictators are entitled to a fair trial under international law. The Ceausescus were denied this, turning their deaths into a revenge killing rather than a legal reckoning. Finally, Elena's execution shocked many. Though she was deeply complicit in the regime, the image of an older woman tied up and shot on Christmas Day left a bitter taste even amongst some of their enemies. The Ceausescu execution became the defining image of Romania's revolution, a regime collapsing with gunfire and fury. But Romania's transition to democracy was far from smooth. Many of the new leaders were themselves former communists. Corruption remained rampant, and economic hardship continued for years. Yet over time, Romania has changed. It joined NATO in 2004, the European Union in 2007, and today young Romanians are free to speak, travel and vote, freedoms unimaginable under Ceausescu. Still today the scars remain. Monuments to the fallen of 1989 stand in cities like Timișoara and Bucharest. The Ceausescus, once untouchable, now rest in a modest cemetery in Bucharest. Even their graves are covered with security cameras to prevent vandalism or perhaps unlikely pilgrimages. Though history may debate the fairness of the Ceausescu trial, few Romanians regret the fact that they are gone. Their story serves as a chilling reminder of how absolute power completely corrupts and how it can all end in a flash of gunfire in a cold courtyard, even on Christmas Day. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.